I had this whole day off. It was cold and wet outside as it had been raining off and on all day. I stayed in and played video games, going about my day as I normally would. Around 5 o'clock, the rain had picked up, and there was a bit of lightning in the distance. I cooked up some dinner, then decided to watch a horror movie while I had the fitting ambiance of the storm outside. I shut off the lights and spent the next 2 hours on the couch. The storm definitely got worse over that time. There weren't any outages or anything, but it was just really coming down hard outside, with heavy lightning strikes nearby. It was around 10 o'clock. I wasn't really tired or ready for bed yet, but I got up to stretch my legs and refill my water. When I turned around toward the hallway, I immediately saw something move, like a shadow on the wall. It was quick, just a split second, too short for me to really understand what I saw, or even be sure that what I saw was real. I froze in place for a moment, then walked over and looked around, only to find nothing but an empty hallway. Maybe it was a flicker of light coming through the window from a far-off lightning strike. I also had just finished watching the horror movie, so I could have been a little on edge and just seeing things. I honestly chalked it up to nothing and forgot about it after less than a minute. I refilled my water and checked on the storm going on outside. The trees were blowing around like crazy, and the rain was basically flooding the roads. We didn't get many big storms like this around here, so it was always interesting when we did. Our town definitely wasn't built for them. I went back to the couch and turned on YouTube to try and ease myself into getting sleepy. I wasn't too tuned in to what I was watching. I guess I was kind of spacing out or whatever. But then again, I saw a shadow on the wall behind the TV move. It was like something behind me just peeked around the corner for a split second. I jolted my head around and looked at the opening to the living room. Nothing was there. I got up and walked over, looking all around that area, but I saw nothing at all. I didn't know what the hell was going on. It was like I was just seeing things, but I had never had it happen twice like that before. Was I just sleepy? I didn't feel like it. I thought that the horror movie and the storm outside would make for a chill night, but this was far from it now. I still thought it was nothing, but there was that tiny feeling in the back of my mind that it wasn't nothing. I spent another 15 minutes on the couch, but decided to go to bed afterward. I shut off the TV and headed upstairs. I still wasn't tired, and even less so after everything happening, so I hopped in the shower to relax myself before getting in bed. I turned on the water and tried to calm down. I was in there for maybe 5 minutes. Through the water, a sudden thud rang through the house. It was violent and loud, vibrating through the floors. My whole body shivered as I shut off the water and quickly got dressed. With the water off, the house was quiet now, not even the slightest sound. I felt like my ears were ringing just from the disturbing silence that followed the thud. I slowly made my way into the hallway and then down the stairs. I walked through the living room and then the kitchen. The back door was barely hanging on from the top hinge, completely open, and splinters of wood covered the floor under it. The 2 other hinges looked like they were ripped out of the wooden doorway. I ran up to my room and called 911, locking myself in the bathroom. That whole time I waited, I thought I was trapped inside my home with someone, but when the cops arrived, we quickly realized that wasn't the case. The door wasn't ripped off the hinges from the outside, it was from the inside. It was like someone angrily left, swinging the door open so hard that it slammed back into the wall and ripped the screws out of the doorway. Whoever it was had been inside my house that whole night. Likely the shadows I saw were them inside my home, probably moving as soon as I looked at them. I have no idea how long they were there for or what they were doing in my home watching me for. It's also really strange that they destroyed my door like that. Like they were frustrated. I've never slept well in this house since then. I am 30 years old and I share my house with my sister. It's a 2-floor house, a mother-daughter house, meaning it has 2 kitchens. My sister takes the downstairs. I take the upstairs. My sister isn't home a lot because she often stays with her boyfriend who lives 20 miles away. Like I said, I'm 30. I shouldn't let being home alone ever freak me out, but admittedly, sometimes it does. This happened on a night that I was home alone in my living room, watching a scary movie. My part of the house is an open layout, so the living room, dining room, and kitchen are all one big space. My couch is in the middle of the space, so as I watch TV on the couch, my back is to a large part of the room behind me. So for those a little more easily spooked, it wouldn't be the most comfortable place to be sitting alone watching a scary movie. I'll admit, as I watched in the dark room, with nothing but the light from the TV to cancel the darkness of the room, I found myself glancing over my shoulder a lot. I like to think I'm not the only 30-year-old male that does that. But anyway, after the movie, I brushed my teeth, turned off all the lights in the house, then went to sleep. My sleep lasted for about 2 hours. I woke up around 1 a.m., and I wasn't sure why I woke up at first. Then I heard a voice downstairs. It sounded like my sister. It sounded like she was inside the house, so it's not like she was calling for me to open the door. But still, I knew it was my sister's voice. I didn't know what she was yelling up to me though, but I was still groggy and not thinking straight. All I could think was that she must have been calling for me or arguing with her boyfriend. So I got out of bed and went into the pitch black hall. I turned on the hallway lights and then made my way through the living room and heard my sister's voice again from downstairs. Now I could understand her to be saying my name. I made my way downstairs in the dark, yelling back at her, "What is it?" I looked for the light switch in the foyer downstairs but couldn't find it. I'm not lying when I say I was groggy as hell. I walked down her little hallway towards her kitchen, found a light switch and flicked it on. The light in the kitchen lights up her little apartment, including her living room. The light starts off dim and needs time to brighten up, but I still saw that there was no one down there. Not her, not her boyfriend. I went to her bedroom, but it was empty. I called her name really loudly one time. No one called back. But shortly after I yelled, I heard something drop to the floor in my sister's bedroom, which I had just checked and it was empty. I went back up the stairs like a little kid and went back to my bed, to where my phone was. I tried to call her a few times, but she didn't pick up. I had myself locked in my room, wondering if I had just hallucinated all of that. Eventually, I fell asleep, and in the morning, I woke up to texts from my sister asking why I called her at 1 a.m. I asked her if she was home last night, and she told me no. She was currently staying at her boyfriend's house. I went downstairs to her bedroom to see what may have fallen down on the floor, but there was not a single object on the floor that could have made that noise. I'm led to believe I hallucinated everything I heard that night, but that's what I want to believe because the alternative would be much more horrific. But I've never really hallucinated anything else or had any kind of sleep disorders. So how vividly I heard my sister's voice and that sound in her room really freaks me out. I was left home alone a lot as a kid, just due to the fact that my mom was single for a good chunk of my upbringing, and she worked as an RN on a crappy RN schedule, and my brother went away to college. This was a night that my mom was working an overnight. It was a weekend night, so I had this girl Molly over who I was talking to, and she hung out for a while. We watched a couple movies and whatnot, and eventually she had to go home because her parents don't like her out late. So I was left alone to hold down the fort. I continued to watch TV in my room in bed. My bedroom is upstairs next to the backyard, so when someone dragged one of the chairs on the deck outside, I heard it. I got up and looked out the window and I saw someone sitting on one of the deck chairs down below. I called Molly's name thinking it was her. After all, she'd only left under 10 minutes ago. Whoever it was looked up at me, but it wasn't Molly. I immediately pulled away from the window to hide. That was not anybody I recognized, not in the darkness at least. I texted a few close friends on our group chat if it was one of them messing with me. The ones who answered all said no and asked what I was talking about. I didn't really believe any of my friends would come to my house to mess with me like that anyway. Scared shitless but still curious, I slowly walked back over to the window to look down again, and that person was still sitting in the chair looking up at my window. It was a he, that much was clear, and he definitely saw me. I hurried away from the window again to turn off the TV. I sat in my bed in a ball, basically with my arms wrapped around my knees. I waited in darkness for a while. I didn't even want to turn my phone screen on because I was scared he'd see the light. I didn't even want to move because the window was opened, and I feared that he'd hear any movement I made. I wanted him to assume I was just no longer in the bedroom. I waited enough time. It had to be a solid 5 minutes of just sitting there. I highly doubted that man outside could still be there. I finally mustered up the courage to get up and look out the window. I felt a little part of me die inside when I saw he was still down there, looking up at my window. Instead of running away from the window again, I tried to be brave and said down to him, "What do you want?" I then noticed his shoulders started to go up and down as if he were laughing really hard, but he didn't make any kind of audible laughing sounds. At first I heard a slight whistling sound coming from him. It seemed like he was laughing so hard that he was wheezing. I asked him to please go away, then walked away from the window again. I went back to my bed. I was scared to call the police for some reason. I left my room and sat at the top of the stairway listening. The back door was being pushed. He was trying to get into the house. I ran back to my room to hide again. I was 14. I didn't know what else to do. Eventually, I heard the front door's doorknob being fiddled with and the man trying to push the front door open as well. He gave up quickly, thank God. I closed my bedroom window and curtains. If our doors weren't locked, I could have been killed easily. I was skinny and weak when I was 14 and definitely not a fighter. I didn't leave my room again that night until my mom got home around 9. I told her what happened and her reaction was angry at me for not calling 911. And in hindsight, that was very stupid of me. One of the many things I did, or rather didn't do at a young age that I questioned greatly. This was the story of how I almost died as a young kid, home alone, and possibly the most intense night of my life, with way too much going on. We're a family of 5. I was 10 at the time. My older brother was 14. My little sister was 5. It was a Friday night. My brother was out with his friends, causing trouble clearly because a dreaded phone call came to my parents. All I remember was I was in my room playing a Star Wars video game when I heard my mom start freaking out, crying. I got really scared and hurried to see what was wrong. My mom was on the phone with a hospital calling to inform my parents that my brother had gotten hit by a car. Obviously, we were all shaken and really scared. My brother's leg was broken, but I don't know what else was said on the phone. All I know is my parents hurried to get their coats on and got my little sister from her room and asked me if I was okay to stay home alone. I said yes, and they hurried out to the car and left. I was, of course, really worried for my brother, but I really didn't want to go to the hospital and see him in any kind of bad condition. I don't think my parents wanted me or my sister to either, but they didn't want to leave my 5-year-old sister home without them. It's worth mentioning my brother recovered just fine, as his injury is no longer relevant to the story other than it being the reason why I was left home alone on a Friday night. Before my dad left, he was trying to calm down my mom, telling her he was going to be okay. So seeing my dad like that made me feel better. I had a feeling my mom was just being overdramatic like any mom would be. I continued playing the Star Wars game for a couple more hours when I heard the front door open. I had my bedroom door closed by this point. It was easily past midnight and past my bedtime. So I turned off the TV and PlayStation and crawled into my bed with my Game Boy. I tried listening to hear my parents' voices, maybe hear if my brother was with them, or just hear what they were saying, but I didn't hear anything. After a few minutes of not hearing them even come up the stairs, I had a feeling something was wrong. I went to my door and quietly opened it, then walked over to the ledge and banister that overlooked the living room. The lights were off, but there were 3 tall people standing in my living room. They weren't my family. I was so petrified that I was frozen for a second before I could quietly walk back into my room and shut the door as quietly as I could in my trepidation. But it wasn't quiet enough, and I knew it. They had to have heard the door click shut, even if just slightly. I hurried to my closet door, opened it quietly, stepped inside, then shut the door. I had myself sitting behind a bunch of the boxes and bags of clothes that were stuffed in my closet. I was actually pretty covered from view. There was a short period that felt like forever that I was anticipating my bedroom door open, and it did. And at that moment, I knew I was going to die. I heard footsteps walk into the room. I couldn't tell how many people. It may have been 1, it may have been 2. I heard the footsteps move to my bed, and I heard my covers being played with. Then silence. Then more footsteps towards the closet door. Then silence for a few seconds, and then the closet door opened. My heart was in my throat by this point. All I did was sit quietly and hold my breath. The door was open for a really long time, but I didn't look up. I didn't move. It had to be a good 20 seconds of silence before the door closed again. Footsteps walked away from the door, then out of the room. I finally looked up, and I just realized from where I was crouched down behind the bags and boxes, I may have been visible to that person. It wasn't until probably an hour that I heard my parents return. I ran downstairs to them. The front door was left ajar by the people who broke in, and they had stolen a number of valuables from our house. It was a night that just went from bad to worse for our family. My parents were in such a rush when they left for the hospital that they apparently didn't even lock the door. I was lucky to have not been killed that night or kidnapped. I look back now and really wonder if the person who opened the closet and just stood there for 20 seconds saw me hiding in there. Maybe he was just a guy that came to rob a house, not to kidnap or hurt a child. Or maybe he just didn't see me, and I just narrowly escaped death or injury.